r/NoSleep. Posted by u/CarbonatedMoolk. Beware. Breaking the rules may result in death. I thought it was bullshit at first. Possibly an eccentric owner trying to reinvigorate her business with quirky, somewhat disturbing hotel rules. Shit like, don't let the man with the plum suit and mauve fedora into room 366. The pool closes at 9 p.m. If you hear anyone after that time, ignore it and report occurrence to management. And rooms 221, 222, 223, 224 and 225 are always empty. If anyone calls room service from these rooms, do not speak nor send food nor maids up. Hang up immediately. I thought it was funny. Something to spice up this decaying, musty, 20-something floored hotel. Its outdated decor and dusty floors that when stepped on released a plume of smoke like that from a chimney, did not exactly draw in the masses. Instead, a crowd of odd people with the occasional Chinese or German tourist attracted to its macabre allure. Despite what you'd think, the pay's excellent. I pay rent on time, I can go on vacation, I can afford to treat myself. Before I never wanted to leave, now I'd do anything to leave. I started realizing why the pay was so high and why employees came and went. Often in body bags even if there was so little of them left. This realization sunk in when my dearest friend and colleague, Leslie, who worked with me at the front desk, disappeared. She disappeared because she disobeyed Rule 34: always bring Mr. Limpets to room 450. Never leave anyone else into room 450. Leslie had thought, as had I, that Mr. Limpets was some finicky old codger who had a specific attachment to room 450. Unfortunately for her, this was not the case. She had left some poor, innocent couple into said room. Their honeymoon, dark tourists they were. They didn't have to die the way they did. Nor did Leslie. When Mr. Limpets had shown up, dressed in customary Hawaiian shirt, tan shorts and socks with sandals, Leslie had informed him it was not available. Mr. Limpets paled. What do you mean? He had half joked. Sorry sir, but they booked before you. You never book. Leslie had smiled, slightly annoyed that this old dude had even dared. Mr. Limpets's kindly face had twisted into a snarl of pure rage as he dragged Leslie out from behind the desk by her hair. I was of course at the time infuriated and had lunged forward to free my friend, but my manager, Huey, had dragged me back. There's nothing you can do now. She's gone. Huey had hissed in my ear. I could only watch as the kicking, screaming Leslie was dragged across the crimson carpet, dust rising as she went into the elevator. Mr. Limpets's vicious cries echoed from the now rising elevator. You killed them. Stupid girl. Now you've gone and doomed yourself. Now it slowly faded as the elevator ascended higher and higher and Huey finally dropped me. My knees burned from the impact, but I could only look on in shock. Only Mr. Limpets can enter 450. He keeps them company. He keeps them there. Came a voice from behind me, its raspy tone crackling with age. I had turned swiftly. It had been my first meeting with the owner. An old woman clothed in a mess of scarves and tatty old clothes hunched over a walking stick. My eyes burned with tears. For some reason her presence solidified the fact she was gone. Even writing about it now, makes the tears well. Not from sadness now though, from pity. For some reason, a very dangerous and irrational reason, I had wanted to see her one last time. I had risen to shaking, aching feet and dashed into the elevator despite the cries of warning that followed. But the metal doors slammed shut and the shitty music started. Floor 1. Floor 2. Floor 3. With each passing floor my fear grew and grew. My heart dropped to my stomach and I guessed I was probably on the edge of pissing myself. But suddenly it all vanished, replaced with pure, unadulterated fear. A terror that made my breath stop as the chime rang. 4th floor and the door clanged open. I took my first wretched step onto the maroon carpet and the doors shut behind me. No going back now. Twisting hallways with few windows and flickering lights had always struck me as creepy, but now, it was menacing. Menacing because I now realized who and what resided in these rooms. Each step that brought me past these rooms with their chipped number plates and brass handles made the pit in my stomach grow larger and larger. Larger each time the number grew closer to 450, my pace quickened. Maybe I could still help her. 442, maybe I could just call the police. 445, maybe I should just run. 447, no, she needed my help. 449, she's still alive, probably just being scolded. 450. My feet became wet with sticky sweat, my knees turned to jelly. My shoes were also wet. Surely I couldn't have produced that much sweat. Blood. I was standing in a pool of blood. This sudden appearance jolted me out of my fear-induced trance and I heard the sounds of ripping and tearing and a quiet sobbing sound. The sound of nails on a chalkboard and the clicking sound of jaws hinging and unhinging again and again and again. The sobbing persisted. Sobbing not of children or women but a man's voice, an older man. Now I pissed myself, they were sounds I couldn't even dream up. I couldn't move, I forced my hand to clutch the cool brass handle like it was a lifeguard helping a drowning child out of a pool. I clung like a baby as I turned the knob, slowly so slowly it opened soundlessly just enough for me to poke my head through. The bile rose in the throat and dribbled out my mouth. Children. Children with the mouths of snakes and long spindly fingers, ripped into Leslie. Leslie was long dead, an expression of shock on her pale half-eaten face. Anyone would be shocked to have been killed by blonde little kiddies with Lolita dresses and snake jaws. Nails on a chalkboard, that was the sound. The sound of their breathing. Every aspect of these kids, if you could call them that, was demonic. Beyond demonic, even old evil Satan himself would be shitting his pants. Mr. Limp's wet sniffles drew my petrified gaze away. Huddled in the corner, his head tucked between his knees, Mr. Limpets cried and cried. Every so often lifting his swollen face to look at what was left of Leslie, a head and some spine. The children had picked her bones squeaky clean. But the next time he looked was because my own breathing had become ragged. His head snapped up and so did the children, their black eyes looking hungrily at my sweaty, terrified face. A small sound of defeat escaped my lips. I was dead. I'd been spotted. The door swung wider as I dropped to my knees in full view of the children, the oldest of whom looked to be 11, tossed Leslie by her blood-matted hair over the side of the four-poster bed. Her jaws closing with a click, somehow her mouth looked normal now, if a little wide. Not that they'd be closed long, as I suspected I was dead meat. Her siblings followed suit, their jaws clamping shut as they looked at me through narrowed black eyes. "Daddy, who's that?" the youngest piped in, her voice surprisingly girlish through her raspy breathing. "Mr. Limpets's? Daddy? Don't tell me those are his fucking kids." Mr. Limpets's looked at me with swollen eyes. "Regina dear, that's Charlie. An employee at the hotel. She was just checking on the room." Regina's face had lit up like a kid at Disneyland. "Can we play with her, Daddy? Please, you never let us leave the hotel." No shit, I thought to myself. Being a playmate to her probably ends in dinner time. I was terrified. I knew it showed on my face. Mr. Limpets shot me a pleading look. "Yes dear, you can, but be gentle." Shit. 1,000 times shit. I was done for. I shot one last look at Mr. Limpets. I was angry, so infuriated that this bum had just signed my death warrant. I fainted right then and there, not really caring what happened since I was already dead in my mind. Fell right into the coagulated pool of blood and gore. I woke up the next day in the break room. Huey and the owner sitting in quiet conversation across from me. For a minute I lay there unaware till I remembered. Then I puked all over the coffee table. Z2 Huey rushed over and mopped it up with paper towels. "Asshole," I spat, fuming. "Leslie got fucking eaten by little blonde monsters and you two are drinking tea." The owner looked on, unfazed. "It's unfortunate you had to see that, but you did run off." "I ran off to save my friend," I snarled. "Your friend was dead the moment she decided to ignore the rules. It was a stupid mistake that cost her life," she said calmly, sipping her tea. I didn't know how to respond to such cold-heartedness. I simply sat back in shock. "Well, I'm dead too. Those kids of Mr. Limpets want to play with me. God knows what that means," I said dejectedly. "I see you've met Regina, Elizabeth, and Adolpha. They are in fact Mr. Limpets' biological children, a product of his past wife who hid a number of secrets from him. Some of which he figured out when the neighborhood dogs went missing. Quite lovely children really. They do have quite a voracious appetite though. Not quite the type of children you'd want roaming outside. So they're confined to the hotel. They spend most of their time in that room. I do suppose they get quite lonely. Don't worry though. They won't eat you." Her thin, cracked lips worked at that last remark. I processed this information slack-jawed. On one hand I wouldn't be eaten. On the other I have to spend my time with snake-mouthed kids that eat people. Not exactly the opportunity of the lifetime. You'll be getting extra pay, no worries about that. All you need to do is play games with 3 relatively normal children every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. Things like charades, dolls, snakes and ladders, that kinda thing. Regina's the friendliest and quite sensitive, so mind your words. Adolpha's the oldest and will take her time getting used to you, but you are quite likable, I suppose. Elizabeth's a girly and would appreciate if you brought her Barbie dolls, tutus, pink stuff in general. Don't play favorites. They get jealous. Mr. Limpets will stop by sometimes, poor man. They're quite the handful," she said, drumming her white, veiny fingers against the now clean table. How much extra pay, I croaked, hardly believing my ears. An extra $1,000 a month should suffice. At that moment I was a depressed motherfucker, but at least I'd be a rich motherfucker. That's how it started. My new job started with a stupid mistake that led to death of my dearest friend and an unsuspecting couple. Now I work 3 days a week with 3 children, who have no problem ripping you to shreds and eating you. They also enjoy a little bit of Disney on the side. Writing this right now, I'm on my way to watch The Little Mermaid in room 450. I didn't bring any snacks. They've already had their snack. Huey fucked up. Now Huey's feet, head and spine have been stuffed down the garbage disposal. I did bring apple juice though. They love that shit. Goodbye for now. The elevator has arrived at floor 4.